It's the Daily Solutions podcast that you're listening to.
Wait, hold on. That's not right.
Oh, solutions, we have you every day.
What? I don't think that's the right one either.
You're listening to the Daily Solutions podcast. Send in your questions so we can answer them.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's
the one.
That's it.
Ship it.
You gonna say Happy President's Day?
Happy President's Day, everybody.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hey there, Graham here.
This is Ashkahn.
And the question for you today is, what's your return rate for first-time floaters? And how do you encourage people to come back?
It's two questions, and we have a strict one-question limit here.
I'm going to let it slide this time. I'm going to
All right. You're lucky it's President's Day.
issue an executive order to let this one slide. Two questions today.
All right.
Just like our two presidents. So I went ahead and crunched some numbers. Not for this podcast, just to answer someone else's question from a while ago. And it's just for you guys. Well, figure it out. So it's a tricky question. First of all, what constitutes a customer? First of all, no. So over what time are they returning is the real question, right? So, I mean, let's say you've only been in business for 6 months. All of a sudden, figuring out if those people who floated during the 6 months are going to come back, even that year, is difficult. You know, you're just calculating a return rate over. You know, if someone floated maybe yesterday and they haven't floated today, that's a 0% return rate for yesterday's floaters. So you kind of need to specify when they first floated, how long ago that was, and over what time period you're looking at them returning, for example. So if you look at our stats for all of our customers except for people who floated just in the last 6 months, then our return rate is 42.2%.
42.2%.
Yep. So the chances that someone floated somewhere over our first 6 years in business and then has floated somewhere in the last 7 years of business a second time. Right. So anyone who came in the last 6 months, we're just not counting because we give them a low chance of returning. Yeah.
Within that time period.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's a pretty nice number.
Yeah, so almost 50% are going to come back. And it might be years later, right? Like that includes people who floated in 2010 and didn't float again until 2017.
Yeah. Or we count children, like if your parents came and floated, then the child comes. We count that as a return. You know? It's hereditary.
Yeah, anything to make the numbers look good, you know? That's what we're all about over here. Dishonesty for good numbers. So if you do that over just a year period, so let's take 2015, for example. In 2015, we had 3,222 first-time floaters, so people who had never floated with us. And the chance that those people came back then and floated either in 2015 or 2016, so kind of a year period, but at max 2 years if they floated at the very beginning of the year. That goes down to 27.2%. So about a quarter.
Yeah, it's a big drop.
So the chances, again, that they float either in 1 to 2 years after their first float is about, a little over a quarter. But extend that out to 6 years, and that becomes 42.2.
So it's like a decent number of people who float and then float like 3 years later.
Yeah. Not a small amount or a couple years later. Yeah.
Which makes sense. I could see like having done it and years later, some friend bringing it up and being like, oh, yeah, I've done that before. Like, we should go do that.
And I should say for all of these numbers, too, I'm only using paid floaters. So they have to have paid at least over $20 to us to come in, just to eliminate friends' floats and staff giving them to parents who are in town visiting and conference guests who are hooking up or something like that, you know. And then the last number I'll give you is for customers who spent over $20 with us, excluding people who floated the first time in the last year. There were about 14,000 unique customers, and those people came in for an average of 3.2 floats, with an average of about $150 spent per person.
So that's our paying customers.
Over 3 times average visit retention, and of course that's skewed from some of our extreme ones who've come in
Like 100 times.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But you can see how this gets confusing, right? If you're just thinking of a return rate, it's like, well, do you say that it's that 27 or that it's the 42? Or some of those customers will also come in 6 years from when they floated first, so that 42% over the next several years should actually also only grow incrementally as some of those people who as yet have only floated once come in for that second one.
So, I mean, one thing I take away from this is that it's good. It pays to be nice to people. Like your average customer is coming in and like is probably going to come back. And so that's being nice to them. If you have some sort of customer service issue, like giving them the benefit of the doubt, stuff like that is all going to help probably keep these numbers high.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the first part of the question, I guess, or the first question.
Yeah.
First podcast of the day. And second one was, how do we do it? How do we get those people to come in to 3.2 times? Yeah, or I guess how do we do even better in the future would be.
I mean, one of those things is being really nice to people, I think.
Yeah. No, you're totally
good customer
right.
service, like when there are other float centers in town, some of those things can make a big difference, right? Like they might actually come to your place as opposed to another place because they really like your staff and how everyone treats them and the general kind of attitude your business has.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's something that we say a lot, but just going back to making sure you're running really good quality floats is a huge part of it.
That's the foundation. Like you can't, anything else you're doing, if it's on top of float tanks that don't have good soundproofing, don't have good sanitation, don't have good temperature control, it's just all going to fall flat. Like you really need that strong base for everything else all the rest of your marketing efforts to build on.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the core, be running good floats. And then everything that we're talking about is kind of assuming that that's already in place and your float tanks are doing well and people are getting out happy. It's then just how do you channel that happiness into future appointments?
So, I mean, part of it comes down to your pricing, trying to make a very appealing membership or some sort of motivation, actually some sort of financial incentive to get people to want to come back.
It's hard to train habits, and it's one of the reasons that we even dropped packages of floats and have switched to an only membership model of doing business. And it's because we want to encourage people to not just come in multiple times, but to really make it a part of their life and a part of their monthly habits or even weekly habits.
Daily habit.
Daily Solutions podcast habit. And it's why memberships are so necessary. I mean, if you're not running memberships out there, definitely start. You get this really active base of customers who's coming in every month. It stabilizes your income. And so just a really good membership structure in general, I'd say, is probably one of the number one ways to boost those up. And that's how you get those people who have been in 100, 200 times. I think our most regular members, I think I was just looking at these numbers, have gotten close to 300 now, or just past 300 floats total with
awesome.
us.
But yeah, I mean, it's true. But like, it's not unusual to hear someone being like, "Oh, I've been meaning to get back into float," or "Oh, I really want to do that again, but I haven't found the time." Or it's not. I mean, maybe they're just saying that to me because they know I own the place. But
you're gonna guilt trip them if they say anything else. Yeah.
But it does really feel like people. The reason they're not coming back sometimes is not out of a lack of want to do it. It's just, it hasn't been built into their schedule, and you get lost in the day-to-day routine of life and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other things. So we talk a little bit about member retention in some other episodes, and that's also important. Once you just have the memberships, then treating your members well, giving them a reason to hold on to those memberships is a big thing. This is also one of the reasons that we are big proponents of building a big internal mailing list. Just having some way to be able to call past customers back in the future ends up being a really important aspect of getting them back in the first place. If there's not some chance that you're collecting their email address and that they're giving you permission to email them in the future, then you're leaving a lot of customers on the table. And that's a lot of people who, even though they might be excited when they remember that floating is something out there, their own lives have gotten so busy and it's not become that habit for them that until they get a prompt, they're probably not even going to remember you exist, much less schedule an appointment. So having some kind of way to stay in front of people's eyes and reach out to customers who have already been in and kind of nudge them a little bit, I think is really important.
Yeah, and we've even gone as far as, we tried for a little bit actually having a discount where if you book your next float right when you come out of your first one, like if you haven't left our shop yet at the end of your float and you want to book your next appointment, we give you, I think it was like 20% off or something.
Yep, and that's a little shout out to Kane's business, the Reward More, that's pretty much their goal with a membership alternative structure. Essentially, is encouraging people to schedule those extra floats and get a discount. And theirs is a little more. You don't have to do it on the spot when you're leaving a float tank or something like that. For us, the trying to get them to schedule in store actually only yielded mildly worthwhile results.
Well, it really worked for some people. They were like, the people that it did work for were doing it every time. Like, they'd come out of their float and they'd make sure to book their next one because they wanted that discount. Like, it was totally just locked in for them as like a habit.
Even like, I think it was almost a year after we stopped doing that the last person dropped off of the float chain. You know, they've just been keeping it up for a year of doing that every single time. And every time we're like, no, you can still chain it together. It's not something we do for anyone else anymore, but sure, you can.
And eventually we were trying a bunch of different types of discounts at that time, and it got a little confusing with all the variety. I think was part of the problem.
Yeah, we like experimentation.
But I mean, I don't know. I feel this one has nothing to do with any quantifiable information.
I'm excited.
This
to
is
hear
more
this
just
one.
a
I don't
hunch.
even know where you're going with this. Yeah.
I think us running longer floats, like 90-minute floats, and even our 2.5-hour floats, are something that helps bring people back. I think people, if they're in their first time, when they get that full 90 minutes in there, like, get to kind of hit a spot in their float, especially when for your first time, when it's a little bit harder to kind of sink into it, that makes them more motivated to come back. And I think offering 2.5-hour floats gives people something cool to want to do. When they float for 90 minutes, and like, that was great, and I want to be in there even longer. And you're like, well, we do these 2.5-hour floats a night. Like, that's another great reason to come back and like try floating again.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about this before, but even our offering such good discounts and free floats if anything goes wrong probably has something to do with those high retention rates. Mm-hmm. Like, those customers who come in were just a little too chilly. The fact that now they just have a free float to come try it again.
Or half off, yeah.
Yeah, or half off, whatever it is. It probably boosts up those numbers quite a bit too. You know, all those people who are just like, I probably am not going to do this again. It wasn't the best experience. You know, we really try to catch them and extract that information from them however we can and try to make it right. And I think that probably goes a long way towards eventually getting them back into the tank.
Yeah, and hopefully, I guess, continuing to get them back in the tank
rather than just taking advantage of a free float and ditching. I don't have that data, so we'll have to wait for another podcast to share that one. Cool. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah.
And if you have your own membership stats you want to share with us, or your own retention stats, yeah, definitely send them in. I'm curious what other float centers do. You know, that's just kind of straight off of the helm and crunching some numbers from spreadsheets, but I really don't actually know how that compares to other centers that are being run out there. So if you have your own questions, go ahead and send them to floatanksolutions.com/podcast.
And we'll answer them.
For you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Right.